What's up, MK Squad? Welcome back to another legendary top of the movie reaction video. And if you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button, man. If you already subscribed, we thank you. You are truly a blessing. And also, do me a favor. Please do me a favor. Give this video a big thumbs up, man. It helps out the YouTube algorithm. It also helps us out a ton. And it's also free, man. And if you got any videos you want us to react to, please comment down below because we will be reacting to them. So we got part 2. Yes, I said it. Part 2 of the dark side of One Direction. Let's finish this off, man. The last video, I got a little bit upset. Well, not a little bit, a lot of bit. And I got a little bit annoyed and disturbed, I should say. Can't even get it. I said disturbed. I mean disturbed. Yeah, man, so let's just get into it.
And I'm not like that. And he's always tried to say that. He's such a gentleman, such a kind soul. But people just look right over that.
Current deal with you dating Extra Factor host Caroline Flack with an ever-growing list of women attached.
Famously dating models, actresses.
To fling with 32-year-old.
For a cougar or two.
She's just a friend. Right.
I'm 14-year-old Cara walking down the runway.
I know what we're doing. I'm dating probably more. Am I right then?
I understand. I seen this comment. Actually. It was said that they had to have different personalities, personas, so individuals could relate to them. I feel like you could always relate to a person, and you could relate even deeper if it's more genuine. If it's fake, and then you find out something is fake, yeah, you're gonna relate to something to a certain extent, but then it's like, how far or how deep can you truly relate? Or how would you even want to relate even any more to something that's not genuine, or a person that's not genuine? You see what I'm saying? But it's not their fault, you know what I'm saying? It's basically they were being, it's sad to say, it was like they're just being taken advantage of by their own management. And your management should be the main thing you trust, because you're just expressing your talent, and they're supposed to have the resources to promote that. You know what I'm saying? So, just wanted to put that out there, respectfully.
My profile. I guess.
It's gonna be a sex symbol loved by every girl. Sex symbol loved by every girl.
You just shied away from it.
Like what? You're the womanizer, right? The guy who likes the ladies.
He's gone for a special massage.
I wasn't aware of that.
It was special massage.
Back and shoulders.
The lady looks really happy.
Harry, there was a rumor that you had a crush as well. Is that true?
Me? I don't. Come on.
No. Really?
I mean, I've got a lot of friends, and some of them are girls, and apparently I'm dating all of them. He has to go through a lot of different things for being Mr. Harry Styles. People write about Harry all the time in a negative way with all his love life and stuff. I think, you know, it'd be nice to get it out there that he's actually a pretty genuine dude.
He can't even say he has females as friends without being judged or being a womanizer. It's just crazy, man. These clips came from the You're a Womanizer, right? Video by Freddie Is My Queen. You can watch the full thing with the link in the description. I'm good. I don't even want to.
Can you imagine what kind of effect that must have on him in his entire life? Like, that's going to grossly affect how he sees himself, because the world perceives him in a way that's just the complete polar opposite of how he is. I could say it a million times and I still wouldn't be able to feel like I'm getting my point across, but that obviously affected Harry very greatly. Like I said, it still follows him to this day. Moving on, Liam, his branding was also somewhat harmful to him. Not as badly as Zayn and Harry's, but he did open up about how he didn't even like his branding, his label, because it greatly affected how he saw himself and how he felt like he had to behave even when he wasn't in the spotlight. I'm gonna read you a paragraph from an interview that Liam did talking about his role in the band. Management took advantage of this, he says, telling him his very specific role in the the group was to keep the rest in line. I was like, that's great, innit? Because then everyone in the band thinks I'm a dick. He remembers one of the band's first hotel stays. We've got plates being thrown out the window, mattresses being ridden down the stairs, and I'm getting calls from the manager saying, you need to sort it out. It wasn't lost on the fans, where Malik and Styles were heartthrobs. Payne says he was classed as Mr. Boring. When you're at the stadium and you get the least amount of screams, it's like, for fuck's sake. Not only was Liam branded as like this daddy, like, care manager type of person, like, he was literally forced to be that way. Even when there was no cameras or videos or whatever, not on stage, they were in a hotel, the boys are acting up, and their management calls Liam and tells him to deal with it because he's the dad of the group now. Like, what? Why is that Liam's job? Why are you telling him to deal with it? Why are you making him be the sensible, boring dad type of person? I had no idea that it was like that until I even read this interview. I thought that, like, these labels that their management was pushing on them were just, like, on stage or whatever. But no, these were, like, things that followed them into their daily lives.
Deeper than that.
Made Liam be the dad of the group. I can't even imagine, like, becoming famous and then being told you have to be this specific way because how you are isn't good enough. Like, you need to be this way to sell records.
Well, it's the same way. It's not even music industry individuals. It's like somebody with a job, and then their manager say you have to do this way. And you see what I'm saying? Like, there's even no employee appreciation in places, and basically they weren't being appreciated.
It's like unbelievable. So then that brings me to another little rant about Louis and how he was branded and how that affected him. Like I said, Louis' branding in the beginning of One Direction was pretty innocent. It was kind of fitting for how he behaved anyway. They saw his like class clown personality and decided to roll with that branding and made him into this like funny, like sassy, easy to relate to, I want to be your best friend type of person. But that stopped working for them. Obviously, because Louis is nothing like that now, which I've kind of talked about before. Part of that is definitely growing up. Obviously, Louis is almost 30. He's not going to be running around acting like a child anymore.
Of course.
But another part of that is his management. They changed his branding, I'd say well into like late 2013-ish, is when Louis' brand and how he was perceived by the media and the public was changed very drastically. They started making him out to be like this super aggressive type of person, getting in all these fights and being super sarcastic and not getting along with his fans and spinning stories in the media a certain way to make him look like just unbearable. He was more tamed, so to speak. And there's a theory that kind of goes around in our fandom that Simon had Louis like fly out to see him specifically to tell him to stop behaving the way that he was. Because it's no secret that Simon did this. Louis has opened up in the past about like getting put on a plane and flying out without the other boys to talk to Simon alone. Like, Simon requested him to come alone, and then he came back. So a lot of people really think that he was flown out to talk to Simon so Simon could yell at him that he was behaving in a way that they didn't like and that he had to change. This branding that they forced onto Louis, like later
I would have used
a little bit,
that platform on social media.
His life now, kind of
even
like
though management controlled that, I would have created a different account. Exposed.
People still perceive Louis as this super aggressive person who only cares about going out and partying and smoking and getting drunk. Literally how people see him. Like, people just choose to ignore every other thing that he says about himself and just see him as this like super aggressive, homophobic, I don't give a fuck about anything type of person. Louis has said in interviews before that he's a romantic at heart, that he wears his heart on his sleeves, that he likes candles. He has fairy lights up all around his house. He likes flowers, literally daffodils. He likes to read books, and people just completely disregard that. And they're like, oh, Louis, vodka, Red Bull, oi, oi, let's go party, here's a pack of cigarettes. And I know that Louis gets like that sometimes. Like, that's perfectly fine, like, that's his aesthetic as a person. But that doesn't mean you get to just completely ignore, like, the soft side of him, you know? It's so damaging and harsh to make Louis feel like he has to be super masculine and aggressive like that. He doesn't have to be like that. Exactly who he is perfect. Like, literally in Habit, when he says, took some time because I ran out of energy of playing someone I've heard I'm supposed to be, I use this lyric as an example a lot because it speaks volumes. Like, listen to him. He's literally screaming at the top of his lungs and y'all are not listening to him. He's tired of playing someone he's heard he's supposed to be. It's really obvious too, as time goes on over the years, if you watch like Louis' behavior on camera, how much he changed. You could tell that he was being slowly media trained out of doing things that he used to. There is also often times where it's very clear that he's making jabs at his management or at Simon directly. Like, he's very like shady about it a lot, especially now. Like, Louis does a lot of things now and like in the past few years as a solo artist that kind of jab at Simon, especially when he was on the X Factor with Simon. Simon was trying to be like, oh, I'm so proud of Louis, like I'm glad that he's on the X Factor with me, like he was his little pet dog or something, and it makes me so uncomfortable because Louis is clearly very uncomfortable with Simon, clearly does not like him. It seems like he's being heavily influenced by him, kind of like Simon has had some kind of hold on Louis since he was 18. It's also fair to mention like the We Made It director's cut. There's a scene in there all about this like boss man who's very manipulative, grossly manipulative, and it's like obvious that he's some kind of like leader in the story, like in a position of power, and a lot of people compare this scene to Simon.
I decide what you do and when you do it. Understand? Good boy.
The hold that this man in the video has and the hold that Simon has, it's scarily similar, and I think it was very obvious what Louis was trying to allude to in this music video. In this part, at least. It didn't make the final cut, but he still released it. Basically, I'm just saying that it really ended up taking a toll on Louis being branded and perceived a very specific way. A lot of people now just disregard him as some homophobic, aggressive, I don't give a fuck about anything, smoker boy, and completely disregard like the relationship he has with his fans, all of the wonderful things that he does to support the LGBT community, and how well educated he is when it comes to politics and everything involved with that. And they ignore how loving and sweet he is and the things that he likes to do outside of being like aggressive, you know?
It's crazy,
it just sucks that people choose to not acknowledge that just because of how he was perceived in the media and stuff when he was in One Direction. This next little section that I want to get into is kind of similar to what I was already just talking about. It kind of branches off on that, but it's more about being controlled rather than being like branded and marketed a certain way.
Issue 2. One Direction had entire lives manipulated, controlled by their management, not just their appearances. Of course.
They were very, very heavily controlled.
Takes over mentally,
when they were in this band, which the whole branding thing is part of being controlled. But they were controlled in many other aspects as well, and I'm going to talk about them. So obviously it was really hard for their management to fully control how these boys behaved in public, because it's like, yes, you can media train them and you can tell them like what to say and how to be when they're in public, but they still have their own like conscious choices to make.
Exactly.
But it's easier to control them when you're doing it via social media. Their management literally tweeted for them all of the time, and there's a very distinct difference between how they tweet when they're tweeting and how they sound when their management tweets for them. There's been multiple instances where people have literally caught their management tweeting for them. So whenever management feels like they need something to happen, for whatever reason, they will literally go on the boys' pages and tweet for them, regardless of if that tweet is something that the boys agree with or not, or if they're doing something they agree with or not, it doesn't matter. And that goes along with planting quotes in articles too. The thing about One Direction's management is that they're able to have paparazzi photos of whatever they want, and they are able to have articles published about whatever they want. If they want to stir up a
so
crazy
if they make a
rumor
different
about one of the
social
boys
media,
that's
would they
completely
still
not
get in
true,
trouble?
they have sources that they can run a story to that's completely fake, that magazine or publisher, whatever company, will literally run. And then the entire world believes this crazy story that their management planted. Like, where did this rumor come from? It came from the management themselves. However they want people to see these boys, they can do it just by calling up their sources, calling up their colleagues and being like, hey, I need you to run this completely bullshit story. And then people are going to believe it. Another thing with that is like paparazzi walks, or pop walks, whatever you want to call them. Whenever their management wants them to be seen out in public with someone, they do. Like, they'll literally...
What?
They set it up, stage it, whatever, they'll go outside, hire paparazzi to come and take pictures of them doing whatever they want. That kind of goes along with being in like publicity relationships and being seen with people. Like, it happens a lot in the music industry. A lot of the stuff I'm talking about with One Direction happens in the music industry. That's just how it works. So even if they really don't want to, they don't have a choice. Their management's like, you're gonna get seen out getting coffee with this girl, and you don't have any say in it. We're gonna hire paparazzi to come and take pictures of it.
Wow.
Kind of going along with that, like the boys are always instructed, or were always instructed to do things just because their management told them to. Like, One video that comes to mind in particular is when Harry was literally instructed to give Caroline Flack a big bouquet of flowers when they were going on to do an interview, and instead Harry chose to give them to Ollie. So basically what I'm saying here with all of this stuff is that they were just completely controlled. They really didn't have any sense of freedom.
You give flowers to the
female? You put together all of the branding that they went through and like how they had to behave, and then you add that with them being constantly told what to say, quotes being planted for them, being forced to go out and be seen by the paparazzi with whoever they wanted, and not being allowed to say and do certain things. Like all of that in this one bubble is like them being completely controlled, and it gets to a point where it's like these boys were not human beings. They were like money-making robots.
Like puppets. Yeah, robots.
Their management didn't give a fuck about how they wanted to dress, how they wanted to look, how they wanted to be perceived. They took these boys and they turned them into whatever the management wanted, whatever Psycho wanted.
Whatever could make them money,
of like freedom and like creativity. Like they could just be themselves in this band. Like no, they were just completely controlled in every aspect. Another thing kind of going along with what I'm talking about that's really just messed up when it comes to their management and Simon is that in the first era of One Direction, Up All Night, they didn't even believe in Louis and Niall at all. Like Louis and Niall were pretty much useless to these people. They were just there to be there. They didn't give Louis and Niall like solos, and when they did get solos, they were short solos or they were not really solos because there was another boy like harmonizing with them while they were singing. I think that's a really well-known fact is that these boys didn't get a lot of solos, Niall and Louis, in the Up All Night era. But not only were they robbed of solos, there was so many different times when Niall's mic would be cut off. And talking about this is gonna make me cry. It makes me so sad. They would legit sabotage him. Like in his own band, they would cut his mic off so that he would be singing and nobody would hear him. So a lot of times when Niall's mic would cut off, Louis would have to give him the microphone.
Bro, he's strong for that. I would have walked off, bro. Like, I would have cursed him out. I would have let the fans know what's going on at the concert. You feel me? At the concert. No questions, no ifs, ands, or buts at the concert.
Can you imagine how that must feel when you're this young boy who's in this like super rapidly growing in fame boy band? Like they were becoming really, really famous in this time, and you want to be there just as much as everyone else. This is your dream, but they think you're not good enough. Then why am I here? Why are we doing this?
Yeah, why?
Yes, I just started crying while editing this video because it's getting to me so bad. But just another thing that I wanted to mention is that like this whole Niall's mic getting cut off thing happened so often that fans started trending like hashtag let Niall sing, and that became like a really, really common saying back in this time because fans were so used to Niall not being able to sing. And since this happened to Louis back in this time as well, like him not getting enough stage time and like solo time, he ended up saying later in his career that he didn't even want to go solo when the band broke up because he didn't feel like he would do well enough. And that stems from him always being made to feel like he wasn't good enough when he was in One Direction. So that's why I'm so incredibly proud of Louis and Niall now, because they've overcome so much of that. And
they
now
gain confidence.
Perfect, and it makes me really happy.
And that just goes along with what I'm saying. Like whatever their management wants for them, they will make that happen for them. Oh, I don't want this boy to sing. Cut his mic off. Like,
bro, that's the most disrespectful thing you could do. Literally.
he doesn't get any solos. He's not good enough. Like you don't get to sing. Like whatever they wanted, constantly. Moving right on with the whole controlling thing though, another thing is like sound and lyrics, which Zayn has opened up quite a bit about not being allowed to do certain things or have a certain style when it comes to singing. On this subject, Zayn said, quote, "There was never any room for me to experiment creatively in the band. If I would sing a hook or a verse slightly R&B or slightly myself, it would always be recorded 50 times until there was a straight version that was pop generic as fuck. So they could use that version. Whenever I would suggest something, it was like it didn't fit us. There was just a general conception that the management already had what they want for the band, and I just wasn't convinced with what we were selling." So he's basically saying, like, no, management has their mind made up. They know exactly what they want One Direction to sound like. So when Zayn tried to sing something like he would in his own voice, they would make him record it over and over again until it sounded like their management wanted it to. Like, I get it in the beginning, it makes sense, like in the Up All Night era, to kind of guide them, write their songs for them, and make them sound a certain way.
Bro, still, bro, like, bro, The management overstepping boundaries. Like, they should know, like, from a human right person to person, that you won't want to be treated that way. So management just basically, they let their position and their job title overtake others.
But then after they gain like a huge following and become the biggest boy band in the world, don't you think you should ease up and let them have their own sound and do their own thing, like as a band, and experiment creatively? Like, it's so ridiculous to me that they were straight up like, nope, we want you to sound the exact same. Do it again and again and again until you get it right. Like, the fact that Zayn had no room to be creative with lyrics or anything. Another direct quote that I want to talk about came from Liam himself. He also did an interview similar to like Zayn's interviews, where he was opening up about how One Direction was actually really toxic and that he never felt in control when he was in the band. So this is Liam's quote. He said, "When asked if he ever felt in control during those times, Payne said he never did. He explained, I still struggle with it now. I really struggle to say no because I don't like to let people down. It's in my nature." So basically Liam in this quote is saying, like, yeah, One Direction was toxic at times. I never felt in control, and that sense of not feeling in control followed him into his career now. Like, he still feels now like he can't say no to people because it was so drilled into his head when he was in One Direction that every single thing they say goes, and he can't have the freedom to.
Also, I feel as though he's probably afraid to say no because he don't want nothing to be retaliated against him, or someone to get upset or how they came off, or feel like they attacking him, or feel like they don't care what they saying, because he always had that energy of, you got to do what I say or you gonna have repercussions for this. So he's scared to say no.
To be creative. That's crazy. It's like they brainwash these boys. Not only has Liam been opening up lately in the past few years about not feeling in control and feeling like the band was toxic, he also opened up about turning to alcohol to cope with all of it. He literally had an alcohol problem and talked about how he went on stage drunk at times just so he could handle everything that was going on.
Wow.
And he also opened up about having to take literal mood stabilizers to help him. That is so... If you want to read Liam's interview opening up about One Direction being toxic and not feeling in control, or if you want to read on like him opening up about his mood stabilizers and alcohol problems, once again, everything you need will be in the description. I have those interviews linked so you can check them out. Another thing that I found when I was doing research that I thought was really interesting was Harry went on the Chris Evans Breakfast Show, which is an interview that he did. And while he was on the show, he literally told the interviewer that Simon Cowell is the source of his anxiety problem. And I know that a lot of people would say like, oh, he's passing it off as a joke, but why would Harry say that, you know? Why would he say that if he didn't mean it? He said that Simon Cowell is the reason he has anxiety problems, meaning that he still has anxiety problems to this day that were rooted by Simon Cowell. Like, Simon Cowell is one of the most successful people ever. Like, he's Simon Cowell. Like, as much as you don't like him, you can't deny his success and how influential and powerful.
Bro, if your success is not genuine and putting a positive effect on people, I don't care how much successful you think you are. To me, you're not successful, bro. And this is not success. This is success in breaking people down, not building them up.
He is in the music industry. So there's no way that you can go up against him with his status and not do what he says. Like, he's Simon Cowell. He can ruin your life. So, of course, Harry and all the other boys had to go along with everything that he wanted. If y'all hear knocking on my door, it's the FBI, because Simon Cowell's going to come for me after this video. All of the boys seem to have a problem with Simon Cowell in general.
Well, you got freedom of speech. Get out of here.
Because, like I said, Simon is kind of the man who's behind all of this horrible stuff that I'm telling you about right now. It's very clear that the boys have a problem with Simon. I kind of already talked about this with Lily and how he behaved weirdly around him and, like, didn't seem to want to be around him and how he portrayed him in his music video. But all of the boys seem to have a problem with Simon, because now Harry's over here saying, like, oh, Simon's the reason I have anxiety. So obviously he has a problem with Simon. All the boys seem uncomfortable with him in general. Like, you can tell when they're, like, giving speeches about him, or when he's around, or when he's, like, giving speeches about them. They kind of just stand there and they're like...
Well, this takes me back 5 years ago when I met 5 guys singing as solo artists, and then I never could have predicted what happened next.
Very uncomfortable. It's written all over their faces how much they
they
don't
sitting
like
here
this
looking
man.
like
It's
how I'm
very
looking,
obvious.
just hearing
Good
this,
evening, everybody.
hearing this negative, like hearing this
this award to our
horrible
boss,
news,
Simon
like.
Cowell.
I don't understand how anyone could ever look at these boys' behavior and body language and tell me that they like Simon Cowell. Like, it's written all over them that they just
can't even be
don't like
themselves
him
around
and are
the
very
dude.
uncomfortable with him. I understand why they're uncomfortable with Simon Cowell. He's the reason they were horribly overworked, had all this branding done to them. He even forced Niall not to get...
Bro, I want to know how Simon Cowell came up. Can anybody, MK Squad family, school me on that? Or is there an unhelpful guide on that? Because I'm curious to see how he came up. Was he treated this way? That's why he treat the boys of the One Direction this way, and that's how he came up. So he do the same thing because he was, treated coming up this way, working hard, working like a robot, pushed to work like a robot. Like, what is it? Like, what is it with this guy?
Get knee surgery just to keep
Or is he
him
just
working.
got like that
you all know
because
that Niall had knee surgery, and it
success
was a
came to
crucial
his
knee
head?
surgery that Niall needed for a long time. But Simon is the one who told him he could not get it yet because he still needed him. This is a crucial knee surgery that Niall needed, and you're more concerned with making money than his well-being. So not only do the boys make uncomfortable faces when it comes to Simon, but also there's the whole "not anymore, Simon."
Not anymore, Simon.
They clearly don't get along with him, and it's so obvious. So that was kind of my little section 1 and 2 of this video, talking and ranting about One Direction being branded and controlled. So now in this next little third section, I want to talk about another aspect of One Direction that was very toxic and hard, which is the fact that they were completely overworked.
One Direction's contract allowed for them to endure constant work without necessary breaks.
I feel like this is another one of those ones that's kind of well known, but I'm still going to talk about it anyway.
Of course, they ate on the stage, like you could tell they weren't eating
Simon
much.
Cowell knew that he wanted to sign the boys of One Direction before they were even out of the X Factor house. If you pay attention to kind of how things were during the X Factor, it came as a shock to everyone how fast the boys of One Direction became popular. They were obviously formed on the X Factor and went through the competition just like everyone else, but they grew a fan base while they were on the show. That typically doesn't happen to people until after they're off the show and they get signed or whatever. But the boys already had like screaming fans when they were still competing on the show. And Simon kind of opened up in the One Direction movie This Is Us about how it was crazy for him to see them growing so fast and so rapidly. Like he said himself that he couldn't believe it, and that it was something that he's never seen in his career before. So obviously Simon's going to sign them no matter if they won or not. One Direction came in third place on the X Factor, obviously, but it didn't matter. They could have lost the competition completely. They could have won. It doesn't matter. Simon was going to sign them.
He already had his mind made up
in his head by seeing like the reaction to One Direction being a boy band. He already knew that he wanted them from early on. So when he did offer them the contract, even though they didn't win it, they were really young and impressionable and had no idea what they were getting themselves into when they signed this 5-year contract with Simon Cowell.
They didn't even read the contract.
That you're this like 16, 17, 18 young
and you get like a $2 million contract. You're gonna be like,
town,
I would do the same thing. Wasn't even ready.
Anywhere glamorous.
Just doing what I love,
went
singing,
to school, have a regular family,
performing.
And then all of a sudden you're in the X Factor house. There's hundreds of screaming girls waiting outside for you every day. And this huge music producer who is super influential and super famous is standing in front of you like, hey, I can make you rich and famous. Sign this 5-year contract. Like, of course they're going to sign it. Of course they're going to say yes. This was their dream. They were too young to know better. They don't know anything about the music industry at all. Of course they're not going to know anything about the workload and how, like, the branding and all of that stuff that comes with being famous. They just see, oh my god, Simon Cowell, we can make an album, we can make money. Like, of course they're going to sign the fucking contract. You know what I'm saying? Especially because it's Simon Cowell, too. Like, are you kidding me? If I was a 16-year-old girl on the X Factor and Simon Cowell's like, hey, do you want to sign with me? 5 albums in 5 years, I wouldn't be like, sounds like a lot of work, let me think about it. Like, no, I'd be like, give me the contract, you know? So then when they got into the band, they were overworked. Completely.
It's not that they
recorded
didn't
an
want to
album,
work.
went on tour, recorded an album, went on tour with no type of like pause in between. There was literally points in time where they were recording their next album while they were still touring the one before that. That's insane. That's crazy. That is so insanely difficult. It's just a constant grueling cycle of writing an album, recording the songs, doing all the promo, all the interviews, going on tour, and then while you're on tour, you don't get to catch your breath. No, you're already writing and recording a new album. Like, that's insane.
Just imagine I'm performing a song that I just did on the last album, and then I'm still making a whole nother song, trying to remember those lyrics, because I'm going to go on another tour from the new album. Crazy,
these boys needed a break. They needed like a year or so off to breathe, be with their family, get back on their feet, and then record a new album. Being overworked like that is like super extremely damaging, not only to your social life and I don't know, your personal health, but like Zayn even opened up about developing an eating disorder because he didn't have time
Never
to eat.
Eating on the go, just munching,
He
but
literally
barely
said the
eating
reason
enough.
that he had one is because he didn't have time to eat properly, and it ended up giving him an eating disorder. Like, I can't imagine. There's a lot of things that I've talked about in this video and stuff that really shake me, but that's one of the ones that gets to me like the most. Once again, these people did not care about One Direction. They cared about making money, like pushing back Niall's knee surgery. Liam's an alcoholic, and Zayn's over here like not eating because he's being so overworked, and you just don't care. The last thing I sort of wanted to touch on in this video is the fact that One Direction has been completely sexualized by everyone since they became a band and were put into the spotlight.
Talking about unnecessary sexualization ever since they became famous.
This doesn't necessarily have much to do with management, but it still goes along with the dark side of being in a boy band, so I thought I would at least mention it. Ever since One Direction was put together, basically, everyone has thought it was fine to be grossly invasive towards them, especially interviewers. They see nothing wrong with barging in and trying to make everything about the boys' sex lives and such like that.
Yeah, man.
Even when they were underage, literally.
Stay tuned for that video. I will be reacting to next. The lady in the leopard print dress, reacting to the interview she did with One Direction. I didn't like that interview. She was getting like personal. You could tell it wasn't sitting comfortable with the boys.
Literally, Harry was 17 when they signed with Psycho and started doing interviews and promo and stuff for their albums, and people still just thought it was perfectly fine to always make everything sexual or be grossly invasive when it comes to that kind of thing. Also,
No
kind of like
respect.
insinuating that
Just
he likes
ignorance,
older women
man.
and constantly egging on him about that when he was underage was weird. Even if he wasn't underage, even if the boys were of age, it's still just weird to be so grossly invasive and invested in their sex lives and making them into sex symbols. Like, people always just found it okay to like Photoshop their heads onto like naked body. They were literally given sex symbol statuses when they were as young as like 17. Media, interviewers,
Right.
people who talk to them, like they.
But then if there were sex symbols just on their own, then they would be put to shame. Well, just because the interviewers and stuff could do it, it's okay. Like,
They
they get
literally
a
did not
pass. It's
care.
just weird
They saw
how
these boys as
societies
just
work.
like another pretty face. They were also subjected to like really uncomfortable jokes. The one that comes to mind first in my head when I think about this is when they went on Chatty Man and Alan Carr kept making jokes about like the Chatty Man sofa, stuff like that. They were always subjected to weird jokes like that. I promise you, interviewers, you can be funny and entertaining and have an interview without sexualizing these boys, especially when they're underage. But
Exactly.
still, every single thing they did, it felt like had to be about sex at one point or another, even when they were so young.
Oh, how
like
many
they are
people do
fresh
you
in the
sleep with?
spotlight. You guys are
Like,
already
that's funny.
grabbing onto them
Well,
and
not funny,
destroying
bro.
them,
You corny.
like the music industry and Hollywood
Talk
in
about
general
something
tend to do to
realistic,
people.
man.
Just
Like,
so
how you
fucked
been?
up. And that's
How's it
another thing
going?
that ended up following them into their current careers and their current lives. All of them
Ask
still are
real-life
subjected to stuff like that. Harry especially. Harry gets sexualized by his own fan base.
Of course.
His own fan base thinks it's so perfectly fine to go on the internet and post these disgustingly graphic tweets about him.
Of course, man. But I'm gonna just end that here. I hope you guys enjoyed this reaction video. Make sure I like, comment, share, and subscribe.